The presidential hall burned in silence, not from heat but from something invisible in the air. Something tense, dangerous, as if even the walls knew a betrayal was walking among them. Captain Adama Kone stepped across the red carpet, his pace measured. In his hand a crystal-clear glass. But inside, it wasn't just water. It was death, poison strong enough to extinguish a man's flame in minutes. A man named Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, a war leader, a symbol of hope, and as far as anyone knew, Adama's friend. Just meters away, Traoré stood still, unreadable. Adama thought, no one suspects a thing, but maybe he was wrong. And when he extended the glass, hands sweating, heart torn, fate hanging over the edge, time seemed to stop. But to understand how this moment came to be, with betrayal, money, and a president who knew far more than he showed, we need to go back to the beginning. It all started in a closed-door meeting, not in Burkina Faso but over 4,000 kilometers away, in the underground chamber of an old European bank in the heart of Brussels. Men in suits, some with French accents, others with British English, sat around a glass table. None of them were politicians officially, but all of them moved nations like chess pieces. In the center of the table, a hologram spun slowly, displaying one image, Ibrahim Traoré. Name highlighted in red. Status, geopolitical obstacle. Since taking power, Traoré had refused to sign deals with Western corporations, expelled foreign troops, and nationalized vital resources like gold and uranium. To them, he wasn't just a rebellious leader. He was a threat to the system. Diplomatic efforts had failed. Sanctions had no effect. Defamation campaigns only made him more popular. Then someone said the words that changed everything. If we can't reach him from the outside, we'll destroy him from within. The plan wasn't to kill a president. It was to corrupt his closest loyalty. No guns, no war, just a glass. A price high enough to buy even a soldier's conscience. Among all the names reviewed, one stood out in the reports from European spies. Captain Adama Kone, son of peasants, survivor of a massacre in his youth, adopted by a Burkina army commander. Later trained under the direct guidance of Ibrahim Traoré himself. He wasn't just part of the presidential guard. He was a brother, but also a man with shadows. Financial records revealed that Adama had a sick sister, receiving treatment at a private clinic abroad, with mounting debts for care the military didn't cover. And then, a nearly invisible detail caught European attention. He had been emotionally withdrawing from the team. Fewer smiles, more silence, more doubt. The offer came through a corrupted former African officer, now exiled in Europe. 100 million CFA francs converted to crypto assets, redeemable after the mission. A new identity, a new life, and above all, the promise that no one would ever know. Adama took days to reply. The poison would be delivered safely, undetectable. All he had to do was place it in the glass and offer it. That's it. Just a glass. Nothing more. For your sister. For the end of your suffering. You don't want this to last forever, do you? The last message on his disposable phone had only an emoji, a glass, and the date of the ceremonial event. Adama closed the screen, took a deep breath and replied, I'm in. The vial arrived hidden inside a book, a rare edition of The Prince by Machiavelli, sent as a symbolic gift by a Belgian cultural delegation. The package passed through scanners, security eyes and sniffer dogs, but the poison was sealed inside an invisible capsule hidden in the book's spine. Adama received the gift personally, as planned. The following night, he slit the spine with a knife and removed a small glass tube. Inside, a translucent, colorless liquid, odorless, tasteless, codename Lotus Shadow, a neurovascular toxin developed in clandestine labs in Eastern Europe. One drop on mucous membranes would paralyze the heart in under 3 minutes. The next day, a symbolic ceremony was to be held in the main hall of headquarters, a gesture of renewed trust between Traoré and his elite soldiers. Among the formalities of the event, one was routine. Soldiers would bring glasses of water to the president and the generals, as a sign of respect. It was the perfect opportunity. Adama stayed awake all night, rehearsing again and again, from pocket to glass, glass to tray. Nothing could go wrong, but something inside him was no longer quiet. In a moment of distraction, he opened the vial and stared at it under dim light. So simple, so silent, capable of killing a man loved by millions, and perhaps stripping from himself the last remnants of honor. Ibrahim Traoré had always been a man of war, not only with weapons, but with eyes, with listening. He had learned early that betrayal never arrives shouting. It comes in silence. Details. And in recent days, the details had started to scream. Adama, his loyal shadow, now avoided his gaze. His steps were more calculated, his presence colder. There were no arguments, no open distance, but something had changed. During an informal meeting with his closest advisors, Traoré sat in silence for long minutes, staring into his teacup. Then he spoke, almost as if thinking out loud. "They won't shoot me. Not anymore. No, they want to use one of us." Everyone exchanged uneasy glances. General Issouf Zongo, the man who had fought alongside Traoré in the earliest battles, was the only one who understood immediately. He lowered his eyes and whispered, "Do you suspect someone?" Traoré answered only with a question. "What if it were you? What if someone offered you everything you ever wanted? Would you warn me, or smile until the last second?" Silence. That night, Traoré didn't sleep. He spent hours reviewing documents, videos, records. But deep down, he already knew. He didn't need proof. He needed courage. Then he gave the order that would change everything. "Let the event go on, but watch every second. And when the moment comes, don't touch him. My weapon will be something else." The hall was immaculate. Flags in every corner. Politicians stationed discreetly at the back. Cameras placed with millimetric precision. But the real show wasn't in the ceremony. It was in the glass. Captain Adama Kone wore his ceremonial uniform. He closed his eyes for a moment before entering. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Though the poison now dissolved in the water was lighter than air. Outside, the crowd chanted words of support. Inside, silence pressed against every wall, as if everyone was holding their breath, not knowing why. When Traoré entered, the soldiers saluted in unison, but his eyes went to one place only. Adama! He was approaching, tray in hand, step by step, just as rehearsed, but this was no longer just a protocol. It was a sentence, just meters from the president. Adama felt sweat run down his back. The hall felt smaller, the air heavier. Still, he moved forward. Traoré reached out his hand naturally, but before touching the glass, he looked Adama in the eyes and whispered, "You still have a choice." In that moment, time stopped. Adama froze. His hand trembled. Guilt screamed. Traoré's eyes held no fear, no anger, only disappointment and compassion. Then Adama made a move, but what he did, no one in that room could have ever imagined. Adama Kone stood still. The glass was still in his hand, but the motion had halted mid-air, as if Traoré's words, "You still have a choice," had severed the strings of betrayal before the poison could ever reach the president's lips. 1 second, 2, 3, and then the tray slipped. It wasn't thrown, wasn't dropped on purpose. It was simply let go. The glass hit the floor and shattered, splashing water across Traoré's feet. The entire hall froze. Guards reached for their weapons. The echo of boots on marble rolled like thunder. But Traoré raised a hand and said only one word. "No." Everyone stopped, including Adama, now trembling, his eyes wet, his breath uneven. The president stepped forward. Once, then again, and when he reached him, he embraced the man who had almost killed him. What you nearly did is unforgivable, but what you just did is unforgettable. Adama fell to his knees. He didn't beg. He didn't run. He just cried, like someone who, for a brief moment, felt human again. And in that hall, where a trial was expected, there was only silence and forgiveness. While the nation absorbed what had unfolded in the presidential hall, a parallel operation was underway, thousands of kilometers away. In the humid pre-dawn hours on the coast of Abidjan, Julien Mauro, a former French agent and mastermind behind the operation, was captured. In a joint African counterintelligence raid, He didn't resist, didn't try to run, as if he already knew the game was over. In detention, he was placed in a dark room with a single camera and a voice that said, "Tell us everything." Morrow spoke, and what he revealed could not be buried. Encrypted spreadsheets with bank transfers, direct contacts with lobbyists from multinational mining corporations, and emails from European politicians referring to Traoré as a rogue asset. The recordings showed meetings with businessmen and military officials where they openly discussed the need to neutralize the president of Burkina Faso before his influence spread any further. Documents tied shell companies based in Belgium to secret contracts involving uranium mines, even plans to replace Traoré with a more cooperative leader. It was all there. Digital, filmed, signed, "We create monsters and call them allies. But when someone is born who can't be bought, we call them a threat," Morrow said, with a bitter smile. The bomb had been built, but now it exploded in the hands of those who tried to run the world from behind the curtain. 2 days after the incident, every headline echoed the same question. What will Ibrahim Traoré do now? They expected anger, a purge, a show of force, maybe even diplomatic war. But Traoré chose another path. In a live broadcast to the entire continent, the president appeared on camera, without guards, wearing his uniform without a luxurious backdrop. President Traoré stood before the cameras. Beside him, yes, stood Captain Adama Kone, the man who had tried to poison him. The image shocked the world, but what Traoré said that day became part of history. They thought that by buying one of us, they could break all of us. They offered my brother everything dirty money can buy, and even with stained hands, he chose to step back. That is worth more than all the gold beneath Africa's soil. Adama said nothing, head lowered, tears in his eyes, not of weakness, but of relief. The same people who build heroes with awards and handshakes are the ones who try to kill leaders with poison. But today, nobody's died. What died was the illusion that we are still a colony. He was applauded, not just in his country, but in public squares across the continent, not for surviving, but for responding with dignity. Adama Kone was not executed. He was not exiled, nor was he rewarded. He was demoted, but given a mission to rebuild his honor. By serving the truth, he was appointed commander of a new elite unit, the Guardians of Truth, trained not only to protect the president, but to defend the principles of sovereignty, transparency, and loyalty within the military itself. Julian Morrow was extradited to Burkina Faso, not to be lynched, but to be heard. He was judged publicly. He revealed everything, and in doing so, he gave voice to a people who had long been screaming without being heard. Traoré returned to the streets, without bulletproof glass, without fear, wearing the same worn beret, with the same look in his eyes, a man who doesn't hold power, but represents it. On the wall of the new Guardian's headquarters, a phrase spoken by Traoré that morning was engraved, "Those who buy bodies will never understand the value of a free soul." And from that day on, no glass was just a glass, no hand was just a gesture, because when trust survives poison, it becomes eternal. Spy tries to poison Ibrahim Traoré, but he already knew everything. This was the ending.